Aromatic. Adventure.
March 17th, 2018, St. Patrick's Day, St. Patty's Day, Feast of St. Patrick, however you choose to refer to this cultural and religious holiday, today is the day. People are out there, they're doing it. They're dancing in the streets, they're parading, they're drinking green beer. There's green waters in Chicago. Even the kids at school, they're drinking green milk. So parents, just as a heads up, I don't know what they're putting in that milk to make it green, but you should really look into it. So many things. We have green clothing. We have some politically incorrect leprechaun costumes floating around, which I think at some point as a people, we should sit down and have a conversation about this. It's pretty derogatory if you ask me, but what else do we have? Bono's not happening, but he's a happening guy, right? He's a part of this holiday. And you also have corned beef, just in case you weren't hydrated enough from all of the many shots of Irish whiskey. Corned beef, baby, just get that sodium content in your body. You're gonna feel fantastic tomorrow, I guarantee it. So other people are out there celebrating, drinking, dancing, just laughing out loud, but I'm all about aromatics. So I have several Yankee Candle St. Patrick's Day themed fragrances right here beside me. I thought I would go over these one at a time, share my thoughts, my opinions, some of my opinions, but mainly my impressions and sensory evaluation of these candles to help communicate with you what I am smelling. See if we can do a little smell-o-vision, if you will. So let's not waste any more time. Let's jump into it. Let's dive in deep. And baby, where's my gold? Where did that come from? That is not staying in. That will get cut out. Alright, so before we begin, I just want to stress that I think you should hang out until the end of this video. There's a pretty cool surprise that I have for all of us, and I think you're going to want to see it, so keep that in mind at all times. Right here in front of me, I certainly have one of Yankee Candle's most popular, famous St. Patrick's Day themed fragrances. Lucky Shamrock, coming back this year, 2018, as a returning favorite or a Yankee treasure. But this hasn't been gone all that long. This probably was retired 1 or 2 years ago. 1 year, 2014, right here on the label, the Shamrock had this felt-like material. So it was like this textural experience, which was really cool. They didn't bring that back this year, but they did bring back the full-size label, which is amazing. You have a clover patch, essentially, and then in the center, illuminated, very lucky 4-leaf clover, as if there was this divine sunlight shining from the sky, illuminating just this one shamrock. Classic Yankee Candle genius when it comes to photography. But how does it smell? When this was released in the past, it was usually released as a limited edition candle. I am very familiar with this candle. I have burned this candle. I have owned this candle. But maybe this 2018 is different. Maybe it differs in some sort of way. Let's find out. Woo! Wow, man. It's green. It's green. And I don't mean the color. So if you really had to sum up this candle in 3 words, 3 adjectives: green, fresh, and powerful. That covers all of the bases. Green, not in just the color, but the smell. There's a green association. There's that wet grass. There's the grass stain on your jeans. There's that wheatgrass juice that we get at Jamba Juice, right? And fresh in that it smells like products that we would find in the bathroom, bath and body products like soaps or shaving creams. And powerful in that it is in your face, powerhouse pungent. But I will say this, upon sniffing just one candle, I do remember this being a little stronger in previous years, meaning this was more in the realm of Edelweiss, where you crack that thing open, you smell it, and your head almost gets thrown back several inches. It does seem to be a little bit more tame. But that may not be a bad thing at all. In fact, for me, it's a good thing. However, still powerful. And we have to say clover, right? Mention that sweet clover smell. Or coramin. Coramin is the chemical organic compound in like fresh cut grass that gives it that sweet green aroma. And that is definitely in there. It's like when you're cleaning your lawnmower underneath, hopefully the lawnmower is off, but when you're cleaning underneath and you get those big globs of wet, clumped up grass, that's that smell, that sweet, freshly cut grass smell. Think of this, when you take a head of iceberg lettuce, you slice it in half and you pull out the center. You know that yellowish color part of the wedge of lettuce? It's very bitter tasting and even smells pretty powerful. A little bit of this pea pod action as well. Spanish olive oil. Why am I being so specific? Well, if you've ever had Spanish olive oil or you're familiar with Spanish olive oil, it's got that spicy, grassy, hay-like aroma and flavor. And so this is really starting to show a concept because we have that olive oil with those fresh greens. So we're kind of making a salad, right? But what else are we missing? We're missing the vinegar or the citrus, right? There's a little bit of a lime zest coming through here, but not a bright citrus juice aroma. And let's say it's August, you're out in the garden, you pick a cucumber, and you're one of those types that you don't need to cut the skin off. I eat the whole cucumber, skin and all. You get that big green cucumber skin, fresh and refreshing. But here's something I never get to talk about. Vegetal components. You talk about it all the time in wine, but when it comes to candles, you're usually not smelling a whole lot of vegetables. But in this case, if you have this at home right now, pick it up off the shelf and put your nose in the jar and you tell me you do not smell green bell peppers. Oh yeah. Oh yeah, and if we want to be really specific about it, it's not necessarily the flesh of the green bell pepper as much as it is the membrane, the whiter stuff inside that we trim off before we cook the pepper, and the seeds as well. And just to take a small tangent, if you don't mind, if you are a New Zealand Sauvignon Blanc fan, classically known for having that green bell pepper aromatic in flavor, maybe you could pair this with a stone fruit, or better yet, citrus-based candle. Because New Zealand Sauvignon Blanc also synonymous with having that classic ruby red grapefruit, or sometimes that nectarine peach aromatic as well. So juicy grapefruit and Lucky Shamrock, burn them together, it's worth a shot. I'd do it. And something that we can't deny about this candle are the florals. And especially the longer I have this lid off the jar, they're starting to show themselves a little bit more. Not that this is a floral smell, but rose stems. Like when you walk into the florist and you smell those freshly clipped rose stems. Again, that's more of a green chlorophyll aroma. And lily of the valley. So not subtle florals. On the contrary, very powerful florals. So those florals do compete with the greenness. The greenness is going to win, but we have two very powerful, that third adjective, powerful components competing against each other. And vetiver. Vetiver is an important one. It's going to give men's cologne, men's fragrances, and this candle an earthy component, which really complements all of the green notes. So if I had to paint a portrait of this candle, what's happening in my head when I close my eyes and smell this? I'm in a vast meadow in Ireland. Maybe it was just raining, but now the sun is coming out and it's heating up all that moisture, and the high wind is just blowing the smell of the atmosphere all around me. Maybe I'm going for a stroll. Maybe I'm sitting on an ancient stone wall that's covered in ivy and wet moss. Those rolling hills of Ireland are certainly coming to mind. This candle takes you places. It definitely paints a portrait. And what an amazing candle for St. Patrick's Day. Lucky Shamrock by Yankee Candle. Heads up, allergy people, people who cannot stand the association of green, fresh, springtime aromas. This could kill you. Not could kill you, but it could really start. This really does belong in your collection if you are a Yankee Candle collector. But we have other fragrances, so let's move on to the next candle. We're going to move on to this little guy, which is quite the elusive candle. Not always the easiest to find, even when it first was released. This is a 2013 pour going by the name of Luck o' the Irish. Luck o' the Irish. This is not to be mistaken with Lucky Green. This is not the same candle. The first thing I want to address is the label. Usually when we see labels like this, it's implying that it's a swirl candle. What do I mean by that? Swirl candles, they look like this. This is Trick or Treat. And inside we'll see that we have 4 quadrants. We have 2 buttercreams and we have 2 candy corns. But then there's exceptions. There's other swirl candles like Pumpkin Patch. Pumpkin Patch is a swirl candle of harvest and spiced pumpkin. But if you notice on the inside, we don't have those divisions. We don't have those quadrants. It's as if Yankee took the harvest fragrance and the spiced pumpkin fragrance, mixed them together, then mixed it with the wax, homogenized everything, and poured them. And I think this is the case when discussing Luck o' the Irish. Why? Because there's 2 major forces at work here, pulling against each other. Now, contrasting aromas is perfectly normal in candles. Contrasts are wonderful, but these are 2 very strange contrasting concepts. We have green in like the Lucky Shamrock that we just evaluated, but we also have this fruity green side as well. So my best guess, because there's no documentation on this, this is a swirl candle of what 2 fragrances? You know, I can't quite say. More importantly, what does this smell like? Let's break it open. Let's give it a sniff. So like Lucky Shamrock, we have that sweet clover, we have that green aroma, the soothing aloe, barbasol, shaving cream. Cucumber water. Have we ever had cucumber water? Super refreshing. So less on the pungent green smell here and a little bit more of a refreshing green. There's also a minty or menthol component in here. and little bit of herbs as well. I'm going to classify it as cilantro and parsley. So green, but definitely taking a different approach than the Lucky Shamrock. But you still get that sun-kissed grass. You know, April showers, followed by the hot sun rays, and that moisture starts to evaporate. You know that smell, that wet grass that is slowly being heated up by the sun. Much more tame than the Lucky Shamrock. So if the Lucky Shamrock seems like it's way too powerful for you, this might be something that you could burn to dial down the intensity. The next one is an odd one, but you have to trust your nose, right? Coriander. I mean, you would think if there was going to be a spice like that or something in that category, it would be caraway seed to play off the Irish soda bread concept. There's also a pine or hemlock nuance here. Not like a Christmas tree. It's not super powerful, but there is a coniferous tree influence. And what that reminds me of is hops. Hops that we use for making ale, right? Two specific varieties, Simcoe and Mosaic hops. Why? Because they have that pine-driven aroma, but they also have a citrus side and even like a tropical fruit as well. And that's a great segue into the other side of this candle. This is fruity. This has that tropical fruit aromatics. Melon being a big component of that. But something also that's very interesting is like an underripe green plantain. And again, I'm trying not to be influenced by the color here, but I really think that's an accurate assessment. We're getting a little bit of bramble, like berry fruits, freshly picked. Mango, both the flesh and the skin. You know, the skin has that slightly floral aroma. It's a green aroma too, if you ask me. And last, but certainly not least, if you're not familiar with starfruit, you got to check it out. Starfruit and dragon fruit. Go to your local grocery store. I think you'll be surprised that your local grocery store carries a lot of tropical fruit that you're not aware of. And starfruit is certainly something that I think is on point when smelling this candle. So tropical fruit matched with the clean, green, herbal, grassy smell of the spring. Look at the Irish. Weird twist, but it is a swirl candle after all, I'm assuming. And one that I do enjoy. This is in my collection. It has been in my collection. And unless they re-release it, it's going to remain unlit. Let's move on. Now this candle right here in no way is promoted as a St. Patrick's Day candle, but I think it qualifies for a few reasons. This is going to be Meadow Showers, and I haven't had one of these in a long time. I recently purchased this one, and I'm looking forward to getting my nose back in here and sharing my thoughts with you folks, so let's do it. The major appeal to this candle, Lucky Shamrock has a lot of bridging of aromatics. Bridging would be like grapefruit or lemon or grass and clover. They're very similar, so they smell the same, creating a bridge. Where this is going to be more of complementing aromas. Complementing is in the same category, but they don't necessarily smell the same. And when you put them together, you're enhancing the sum of its parts. That, and because this covers a large spectrum of aroma, is something that's really hard to break down systematically, but I'm prepared to do my best for you. The greens. We have to talk about the leafy greens. The leafy greens, the lettuce, the romaine, the spinach, the kale, the dandelion greens, you name it. There's citrus here. So again, we're creating that salad idea, illusion in our head. A little bit of lemon, but in this case, I think it's clear that there's this grapefruit zestiness to this candle. Also, like the Lucky Shamrock, there's a clean factor here. We're getting a soapy, amber-like cleanness this time, but also clean in the sense of like fabric softener, laundry detergent, classic lavender, the cooling eucalyptus, right? That's gonna really be important. That cooling sensation really supports this bucket, which I would imagine is very cold rainwater. Ylang flowers. Now, ylang, what did I just say? If you're not familiar with essential oils, I highly recommend you visit your local fragrance store. You smell it once, you'll never forget it. What's interesting about ylang is that it does confuse your nose, or at least for me, it confuses your nose. So when it's incorporated into a fragrance, it throws you really far off the trail. Until you realize that, okay, it's ylang in there that's making it smell that way. And come to find, it's not a big surprise that ylang is also in, for me, one of Yankee Candle's most complex, most confusing fragrances, Season of Peace. There's other florals in here as well. Tulips, like Happy Spring, that was just re-released this year for Easter. Tulips have a slightly fruity side to them. To me, it shows itself as stone fruit, like peaches and nectarines, specifically like white peach. Hyacinth flowers, these are not subtle, these are not gentle, they're not soft. Those adjectives do not fit hyacinth at all. Hyacinth is very pungent, very powerful. I know there's a wooden base, but it's made up of different components to the point where it's hard to classify. However, I do get a wintergreen, or even more a spearmint subtlety off this candle. And you've heard me say this all the time, how birch has a natural wintergreen aroma to it. Now that's going to be the resin. Because I'm smelling that wintergreen spearmint thing, we could say the base of this candle is going to be birch. And because of that wood, it's starting to paint a portrait. I'm going to tell you what I see in my head. I'm sitting in that wooden boat out on the lake. It's summertime, there's high winds, there's green vegetation everywhere that is super powerful and aromatic. Of course, there's going to be multicolored flowers all around the lake that also overwhelms your senses. So to me, although this is very appropriate for St. Patrick's Day, it's very appropriate for spring, this to me does bring me to a very specific place. There's a sense of place to this candle, and for me it is the summertime at the lake, in the water, again, sitting in that wooden boat. Even though I don't think I've ever sat in a wooden boat in my lifetime, to me that is the ultimate goal when creating a candle. Something that can transport you, can take you somewhere, can serve as an escape. And Meadow Showers does not disappoint in my eyes. However, same warning as before. If the association of green, springtime, fresh cut grass is not your thing, just the thoughts of it gives you a headache, these you're gonna want to tread lightly on all of these green candles today. If it's not in your collection, it gets my vote, and I recommend you pick one up. And if you can find the one with the full label, you might like that one too. Alright, so we're getting mighty close to the end here, and I promised that I had something very special to share with you. It's right here. This is a pair of candlesticks by Yankee Candle. Yes, they also made candlesticks. Scented candlesticks. And if you take a close look at this label, you can see that this has some age to it. And by process of elimination, I'm going to age this candle around 30 years, give or take. In big bold letters, Shamrock. 'Tis the luck of the Irish to be having their own candle for St. Patrick's Day. Also in big bold letters. So is it called Shamrock? Is it called St. Patrick's Day? Is it called Shamrock St. Patrick's Day? It's unclear. Furthermore, it says, these Shamrock candles are handcrafted by Yankee Candle Company, South Deerfield, Massachusetts. So we know that it's older than 1983 because that's when South Deerfield was established. But if you look at the font of Yankee Candle, this was before the change of what we know as the classic Yankee Candle font. The Trajan, however you pronounce that font. This predates that. Now, how do I know this is around 30 years old and not 35 years old or 25 years old? So if you look right here, I have two Yankee Candle pillars. Yes, not only did they make candlesticks, Yankee Candle made a lot of pillars. This one, Cape Flowers, is a little bit older than this one right here, which is Fresh Lilac. And I'll tell you why. If you look in really close here, this photograph of Cape Flowers hand-colored. Meaning, there was somebody printing these labels and with a color pencil actually coloring the labels one by one by one. Whereas this candle right here was fully printed in color, so we know that this one's a little bit older. So how do I know that these candlesticks are from the later portion of the 80s? Is because this Shamrock right here, it's not hand colored. It is printed in full color, very much like this Fresh Lilac candle, somewhere around 30 years old. Now, this is in perfect condition, pristine if you ask me. There's no holes, there's no dings, there's no bends. And it hurts me to do this, and it might hurt you for you to see me do this, but I am going to sacrifice this relic, this something that belongs in a Yankee Candle archive for this video. Because this is a scented pair of candlesticks, what I'm going to do is cut this open with this pocket knife right here, and I'm going to cut off a piece of one of these candlesticks. From there, I'm going to take that candlestick and I'm going to pop it inside of this mason jar right here. Put the lid on and then put this mason jar in a pot of not quite boiling water, but pretty hot water until all of that wax finally melts. So let's tip this over. And are we ready? Are we ready to do this? Let's make an incision right here. Oh, yep, that is now officially opened, and amazingly very aromatic. Usually I use 5 ounces, or excuse me, 5 grams of wax for the aroma prison, but I'm going to use a little bit more for this guy because, as you can see, the center is, I'm guessing, not scented at all. That's just going to be pure white paraffin wax, and just the outer rim is going to have the green scented part. So let's take our mason jar, we're going to pop off the top, we're going to take that candlestick, we're going to drop it right in there, and really close that nice and tight, locking and trapping the candle inside. And the only thing left to do is to put this in some hot water, melt it down, and then we're ready for some sensory evaluation. We're going to take a quick break. I'll be right back. Okay, and we're back. And as we can see, we have a completely melted candlestick. It's hot. Right. First, right off the bat, white musk or floral musk, because there's a little bit of this powdery talcum thing going on. Also a little bit of Johnson & Johnson's baby powder. But immediately something that I smell is citrus, which I was not expecting. Bergamot. Yeah, really tart, bright bergamot. I mean, it's so zesty. I totally was not expecting that at all. Like, you just microplaned an underripe lime, but that talcum powder, that baby powder, is making me, it's bringing me to the barber shop. It's putting me into that state of mind. There is a certain amount of masculinity to this fragrance, which, again, you know, that's subjective, but I'm saying that because it does remind me of certain components of men's cologne. Some of those components being vetiver, again, that really earthy component that is synonymous with so many classic men's colognes. Geranium or rose, and patchouli. Yeah, not witch's brew. It's not witch's brew, but we are getting some of that earthy, herbaceous, even woodsy patchouli and amber. A little bit of that, again, clean bar soap, very warm, thick, heavy scent, comforting scent of amber. And although I said white musk, there is another musky side to this, which I think is really kind of capping off why, for me, this is a masculine approach. And that's going to be a leathery musk, like pure, brand new, rawhide shoelaces. Right out of the package, you smell that rawhide. And because of its age, and because nothing is really triggering my mind to go in either direction, as far as wood base, I believe there's a wood base here, but again, it's really not distinguishable for me, but I would be happy and completely satisfied to classify this as a sandalwood base note in here. But the big question is, do I smell aged? Does this smell old? Does this smell like this candle's been sitting in a basement somewhere? No, not at all. This candle smells brand new. I think just for the label alone, it's worth the price of admission. So that is going to do it for me today. Thank you so much for joining me as I sat down and shared my opinions and my sensory evaluation of something that I'm very passionate about, Yankee candles. I hope everyone has a fantastic holiday, but be safe. Be safe. Don't do anything silly. If you enjoyed this video, a thumbs up is always super appreciated. And make sure you leave a comment down below. This way we can strengthen our communication. Get to know one another. Thanks again for joining me. I will be seeing you guys soon. But until then, be good, will ya?
Simple,